Hello everyone, I'm Penross776. Are you ready for an Engage banner? It better be an Engage banner, otherwise I'll look real silly right now. A new Rearmed hero. Okay, so I guess... No, that is an Engage character. That is, what's his face?
Some heroes with amazingly huge muscles around here.
Huge muscles, he says.
Secrets.
Yeah, you grow some huge muscles, Alfred. Okay, so yeah, our first character here and engaged character is Alfred. I can't speak too much for his character yet because the game hasn't come out when I'm recording this. Begs the question, can you be a rearmed hero if it's your first appearance, really? Because to be rearmed, surely you'd need to start out by being armed. Well, in any case, Alfred is a lance cavalry unit armed with the arcane Kiang. I can do Norse. I can't do any of the other languages. Trigger. Accelerate special trigger. Cooldown count -1. At start of combat, if unit's HP is greater than or equal to 25%. Grants attack speed, defense, risk +5 during combat. Unit makes a guaranteed follow-up attack. Foe cannot make a follow-up attack. And also, if a unit or foe initiates combat after moving to a different space, grants special cooldown charge +1 to unit per attack during combat. Okay, so pretty aggressive special-based weapon here. You've got slaying, +5 cool stats, full follow-up control, and then that breath-like effect. Not on a breath condition. The condition is just if you've moved to a different space, or if your foe has moved to a different space, which, well, pretty much always is the case. Unless you're literally starting the turn right next to each other, you're generally going to have to move to initiate combat. So that last condition is generally going to be always active. Interesting, cool weapon here, as it's an arcane weapon. Of course, you can kind of see how it's designed to fit on as many units as possible. There's no real stack conditions that you want to meet to run this. It's like follow-up control is applicable even on really fast units who run no follow-up anyway, because, well, it just is. You can still use that against other fast units to absolutely make sure you're getting that follow-up control you need. And then, yeah, slaying and breath means fast specials. Very usable on pretty much anyone, I'd say. Bonfire is his special, by the way, so we're expecting quite a high defense unit here. And his A slot looks like a PRF A slot, so I guess we're going back to the era of these for arcane units. Makes sense. The last two arcane units without them were a little sad, really. Well, they were cool units still, but it feels like at that point they're just like another 4-star but with better inheritance. So no, he gets a PRF A slot, Self-Improver. Grants attack +10, speed +5, defense +20, inflicts res -5. That doesn't say during combat. That's just all the time he gets that. Those are visible stats. Cool. Okay. So that's what, an overall +30 stats? And at start of combat, if unit's HP is greater than or equal to 25%, inflicts special cooldown charge -1 on foe power attack during combat. Okay, so just a lot of stats. And guard, the fact that it's 30 stats may seem pretty ridiculous at first, but, well, is it? Is it really? Because here's the thing, we have kind of seen other units who can stack ridiculous amounts of stats before. I know there's at least a couple of units who get defense +20 or something, like Flora's original Refine, not Picnic Flora, regular Flora. And I think there was another, possibly a seasonal unit who had something like that as well. And just big numbers alone aren't enough to win in this game long term. Of course, big numbers sure are very helpful when it comes to winning in this game, but a lot of your matchups come down to effects first, and it's only once the balance of those special effects evens out that your big or small numbers start to play into it, is my personal experience. So, well, he's got full follow-up control, he's got special acceleration, he's got guard, so that is a pretty cool set of abilities right there. This is in an A slot, so he can't really be a dual phase unit so well, necessarily, since any like distant counter type skill you'd want to run here. Not dual phase, dual range. Any distant counter type skill you'd want to run would take up this slot, so it does kind of limit his build options a fair bit, but as just a big old stat stick, there's probably still a lot of units out there who you can run over with this. Also a new B slot, Flow and Trace free. Enables Canto Rem +1, and if you initiates combat, neutralizes effects that prevent units' follow-up attacks. Okay, so I'm guessing relatively fast as well then, since he's got a gap. Well, he could be slower, but basically what this is saying is he really is getting that follow-up attack. He's got a guaranteed follow-up attack, and he's got follow-up prevention negation, so he's getting a follow-up attack. Unless his opponent has full-on no follow-up and is faster than him, but don't worry about that. And in the C slot, Cross Spur attack. Interesting to see the Cross Spur skills come back. They never really popped off, I'm guessing mainly because the units that they came on were kind of significantly more valuable than a Cross Spur skill is as inheritance. Something like Duo Peony is kind of ridiculous, and you can always use more of them. Overall, pretty cool. The inheritance seems geared mostly towards... Well, it's interesting, yeah. Basically, you're probably taking the Arcane Lance off of this guy. Some of the other Arcane units, like Arcane, you basically wanted Special Spiral for most of all, and getting the Red Tome was kind of a bonus on top of that. But here, the Lance really seems like the key point of this kit, and Flow, Near Trace, and Crossbow Attack are both kind of like just neat things you can grab alongside it. Nonetheless, I think this guy is probably a decently good Lance, and his inheritable Arcane weapon is probably going to be the best in slot for a lot of Lance units out there for the time being, so it's going to shape how Lances kind of are as well in the metagame. Let's keep going, shall we?
Wither and fall!
Oh, that's a big old bonfire, alright. Yeah, this guy has a hell of a lot of defense. Now, more new heroes. Who do we got? That is Celine?
This castle
Is it?
is a riot of flowers in bloom.
Yes, Celine, a Green Tome Infantry. Again, can't speak much for her character. Game's not out yet. Joyous Tome is her weapon. Accelerates special trigger cooldown count -1 at start of turn. If used within free space of an ally, restores 7 HP to units and allies within free spaces of unit. Restores 7 HP to allies within free spaces of unit after their combat. Reduces damage from attacks during combat and from area of effect specials, including rope of area of effect specials, by percentage equal to number of allies with HP greater than or equal to 50% within free spaces of unit times 15, max 45%. Wait a freaking second. You know how I mentioned some time ago how a lot of the DR halving skills use 45% damage reduction as their example for some absurd reason? Here it is. Here is the character with 45% damage reduction. Funny that. If units within free space of an ally, grants attack speed, defense, res +5 to unit during combat and deals damage equal to number of allies with HP greater than or equal to 50% within free spaces of unit times 5, excluding area of effect specials, max 15, and restores 7 HP after combat. Okay, so there's three real parts here. Well, slaying, obviously. 7 HP healing in a free tile radius at start of turn. 7 HP healing after combat for both her and allies, again in a free tile radius. So a lot of healing output here. And then the actual in-combat part of her weapon is based on having allies within free spaces on more than half HP, so stacking all that healing makes sense. In combat, she's basically getting potentially assuming you meet the condition, which free space radius, so long as your team isn't horribly damaged, should be achievable, you're getting 45% damage reduction, plus 5 to all stats, and 15 true damage. So in terms of the actual combat skill of this unit, kind of average, honestly. The damage reduction is nice, but there's units who can out damage reduction her by quite a significant amount. Same goes for the true damage, and plus 5 to all stats is on every unit these days. So I guess the main reason you're running her, though, is that pretty ridiculous amount of healing. 7 HP at every turn, and also 7 HP after every combat. That is pretty considerable, especially if you're running her alongside allies who also have high damage reduction. Remember, damage reduction makes your healing that much more effective, because 7 HP is now taking 14 damage chip through, for instance, something like that. So very, very good. Definitely nice to have this sort of option on a team, especially since this is very, very reliable by the looks of it. Free space radius is basically the only condition, right? Other units have been able to do this before with stuff like recovery skills, but this is possibly the biggest and most reliable team-wide effect we've seen so far. So good to have. Yeah, don't know if she's a huge meta unit necessarily. I don't think she really is, but if you build a team around her that can really use that healing, then potentially you're going a pretty long way. You can also use this to help set up miracle loops, I guess, because it is after combat healing. Any of those characters who are running like Mystic Boost 7, this can stack an extra 7 HP on top of that to help you get back into miracle range that much more easily. Very fun there. Especially as Iceberg, so I'm getting a high res unit, and the A slot, a new ideal, speed res ideal for... If they're building this unit more for survivability than damage, which seems to be the way, or rather if she's relying on her true damage for damage output, then this is a pretty good skill. Speed res, not necessarily a very popular combination of stats, because you're only really using res on a ranged unit for combat against other mages, right? Since dragons hit res, but dragons are adaptive damage, and we don't have any anti-adaptive damage here. Well, combat against other mages and also boosting up your Iceberg. So if this is a speed res focused mage, that kind of limits their use as an actual combat unit a bit more again, but hey, I'm sure people will find ways to make fun with her. And in the C slot, Kanto Control 3 is just very nice to see, because at the moment, none of the units that have Kanto Control are units that you really want to fodder off. Looking at you, Medeus, I always want more Medeus merges. So, cool, interesting fodder. Not necessarily super meta, but definitely has a very unique place, nonetheless. See the animation for this joyousness? See, it does seem to be sort of flower themed, or they all seem to be a bit flower themed. Yeah, there was some flowers there, although it was mostly just green glowiness. Next up, the fairy tale Flier.
Or, sauteed fish eyeballs.
Fish eyeballs. Okay, it is Chloe, a Lance Flier. Armed with the Dreaming Spear, accelerates special trigger, cooldown count -1, grants attack speed, defense res +5. If a unit is on a team with 2 allies in a support partner pair, excluding unit makes a guaranteed follow-up attack, inflicts special cooldown charge -1 on foe attack, deals damage to equals 20% of units res and reduces damage from foes' attacks by 20% of units res during combat, excluding area of effect specials. So this, my friends, is our first res-based flat damage reduction, and all in all, actually just a very consistent unit, because, again, slaying plus 5 triple stats, guaranteed follow-up attack, guard, and dealt damage and flat damage reduction based on units res, all of those are either built in, or if unit is on a team with 2 allies in a support partner pair, which, guess what? That's a team building condition. So long as you've met that during team building, you don't need to worry about this unit's positioning or anything else. It's just very straightforward. These effects are active now. So at the very least, this unit is going to be decently strong. Going to have high visible stats as well, because I think that grants attack speed defense res plus 5 is an out of combat effect. So that's going to be fun. Going to be pretty strong in terms of just every unit who's had flat damage reduction effects has been strong, right? That's what I'm saying. Aside from that, Glimmer is a very average sort of special. I would have guessed Iceberg, but I guess we've already used Iceberg on this banner once. Distant Stance, res plus 5 and distant counter. Okay, so they're going for a defensive flyer range thing here. Don't know if that's super great idea, just because flyers are vulnerable to bows, but it's definitely an option. You can definitely, if she's a high res unit, then tanking mages should be no issue. And in the B slot, something very new, Pegasus Flight 4. Inflict stack death minus 4 on foe during combat, and at start of combat, if unit speed is greater than foe speed minus 10, so if unit speed is anywhere even close to foe speed, inflicts penalty on foe's attack and defense during combat equal to 80% of difference between res stats. Units res minus foe's res before combat, maximum penalty of minus 8. And also, if at start of combat, unit speed and res is greater than foe speed plus res, foe cannot make a follow-up attack. Okay, so guaranteed follow-up attack in the weapon, follow-up attack prevention in the thing here, but also, this is making Pegasus Flight significantly better. First things first, even if you fail the conditions, you get attack defense minus 4. That's already putting it on par with something like a Kanto skill or a lull skill, so long as you're against an opponent who doesn't have buffs in those stats. Then there's the actual flight effect, which they've changed around a fair bit, because old flight, if I remember correctly, you need something silly like 14 more res to get a smaller attack defense down on the opponent. Here you only need 10 more res, like 14, I think it was 14, it might have been 16, I don't remember, but that was kind of an insane target to hit when you consider just how high some of the res stats on the opponents you really need, and an attack and defense down against are. Like if an opponent's res is already that low, then well, it might be a high attack and defense but low res unit, something like Rinka, but most of the time, bulky, strong units tend to have high defense and res these days. So bringing that target down that much is pretty handy, and means that a lot of the time, so long as you're out-resing people, which presumably this unit has very high res, that should be reasonably achievable to get a pretty high amount of attack and defense down. Again, you're starting at minus 4, so you can pump that up pretty higher. And then also, that last thing, the follow-up attack prevention, helps a lot because that's a speed plus res check. So, quite often against big, strong, tanky units, you'll run into, well, you meet the speed check easily because, well, some of them have like low double-digit speeds anyway, so long as you've got more than like 5 speed, you're making that speed check here. But, well, the res check, different matter. Now, so long as you're winning on speed plus res total, you're at least getting something out of it. Basically, to put a long story short, I think Pegasus Flight 4 is pretty neat. Definitely a lot more worth considering than Pegasus Flight 3, which was just kinda too difficult to actually get any use out of most of the time. Okay, cool. So yeah, very strong, very consistent looking unit. I like this a lot. Let's keep watching, shall we? Also, notably, normally this spot would be reserved for a 4-star. I'm guessing that is not a 4-star unit. And finally, well, we could have accepted this. It is the Pepsi Lord herself.
Some of the heroes here look an awful lot like certain emblems I know.
Oh,
I can't
funny
wait
that.
to talk to them.
Voiced by Laura Stahl. Okay.
I've got this.
Ooh, fancy. I'd recognize that status effect anywhere. Let's do some reading. So, Sword Infantry, of course, they're a Lord. They're either Sword Infantry or Sword Cav. That's just how things work out around here. Liberation, I assume. You don't put accents on letters like that if you don't want me to pronounce it funny. Or maybe you do. I don't know. Again, as I said before, I can do Norse. I can't do any of the other languages these guys use. Accelerate special trigger, cooldown count -1. At start of turn, if unit's HP is greater than or equal to 25%, grants charge to unit and support partners within free spaces of unit for 1 turn. Some of you may not know what charge is. I do. It is the status effect that is granted by Assault Troop. So this is now giving you an option to, by using supports, run Assault Troop on a unit without using up their C slot. Potentially very interesting if you're the sort of person who likes to run, for just a random example I'll pick out of my skull here. Far or near save on your summer Edelgard. You can still give them Assault Troop. So yeah. Start of combat, if unit's HP is greater than or equal to 25%, grants attack speed defense res +5 to unit during combat and inflicts speed defense -X on foe during combat, where X is the number of allies from distinct titles within free spaces of unit ×4, +4, max 12. So wait, if it's ×4 +4, then so it's 12 basically. So long as you've got 2 allies from distinct titles within free spaces, you get 12. If you've got 1, you get 8. If you've got none, then you get 4 still? That's so generally it's going to be 12, basically, is what I'm saying. That's a pretty big speed and defense swing. And also, if unit speed is greater than foe speed, reduces damage from attacks during combat and from area effect special, excluding Roku area effect specials, by percentage equal to the difference between stats ×4, max 40%. Okay, so quite a long description there, but actually surprisingly low on effects. Slaying is great, of course. She and her support partner get Assault Troop is very handy, especially if you're pairing her with armored supports. And then big stat swing, +5 to all stats is normal, but then an extra pretty easy to get speed and defense -12. And lastly, dodge effect. Cool. Luna treats foe's defense res as if reduced by 50% during combat. It's normal for like speed or attack based characters. Well, speed based characters tend to get Luna, because there's no default pool speed based special. Attack speed ideal 4 is back. Interesting. An attack speed skill is pretty good. Doesn't have huge synergy with her kit being ideal specifically, because there's nothing really keeping her at 100%, and there's, well, I guess charge is being applied to her, but so that's one way of triggering that, I guess. So maybe there's a bit of synergy with her kit. but there's nothing really keeping her at 100%, so you might want to heal her up for extra stats. Anyway, it's back. You can inherit it. Close Call 4 in the B slot. Inflicts speed defense -4 on foe during combat. If a skill compares unit speed to a foe or ally's speed, treats unit speed as if granted +7. Okay, so 1, they've added a stat decrease on it. 2, they've added a phantom speed effect into Close Call 4, and if unit speed is greater than foe speed, reduces damage from attacks during combat and from other effect specials by a percentage equal to difference between stats times 5, max 50%. So, okay, still looking for the same 10 stat swing to get maximum effect, but now it's 50%, not 40. And also because it's Close Call, right, I forgot that these were originally redone versions of movement skills. If you initiate combat, unit moves 1 space away after combat. So yeah, this seems very strong for people who were running green skills and like are maybe getting a bit out of their speed bracket in today's society. Like nowadays there are better green skills to run than like Close Call 3 because you've got I forget what they call it, Velocity, is it? Which is the tempo green skill. And then there's also the Desperation green skill, which I also forget the name of. And there are other green skills with effects that you like are more useful than hit and run, basically. But this has hit and run built in. It also has effectively an 11 points speed swing built in compared to other green skills. So now, if you were falling behind the front of the speed curve by about 11 points and you're willing to give up your velocity or whatever else for it, now you can to get more damage reduction as well as the other half. Like, would you give up tempo for 10% more damage reduction? Probably not, but would you give up tempo for 11 speed and 10% more damage reduction? Mayhaps you would. Worth considering. And in C slot, Speed Smoke 4. After combat, inflicts speed -7 on target and foes within 2 spaces of target through their next actions and grants speed +6 and dodge to unit for 1 turn. We've seen this before. Again, another huge speed swing. Another source of dodge. Actually, come to think of it, is this the most damage reduction we've had stacked in just a unit's base kit? Hang on, quick maths time. Okay, so we've got 40, we've got 40, we've got 50. 40, 40, that's 60. 60, that's 36. Plus 50, that's 18. 18, 100. 82% base, speed-based damage reduction in Alear's kit here. That's pretty nuts. And of course you could run something like Vital Astra or Godlike Reflexes just to really make things very silly. Luckily, despite that being ridiculous, it is not a huge problem necessarily, just because damage reduction shred has existed for a long time. But you'd better have damage reduction shred or outspeed. I guess outspeeding is also an option, although a pretty difficult option given just how much speed swing Alear is able to stack in their kit with the -12 speed from their weapon, the 11-point speed swing from Close Call 4. You're essentially up, 23 speed compared to a normal 2022, 2023 unit who just has +5 speed. So yeah, that's going to be a hard as hell speed check to make, but if you can make it, obviously they're going to be squishy and die horribly. Cool. Very good fodder here as well. Obviously it's a little awkward because they're all tier 4 skills, but if you can ramp up to tier 3 using other units, then you can potentially pick up Ideal 4 and Close Call 4 and Speed Smoke 4. Speed Smoke 3 is pretty easy to get, right? all on one massive inherit. And that's going to be fun, because that is a very well working together sort of kit. Cool. Let's keep watching, shall we? What are we doing, Pepsi Lord? Oh yeah, that's taking like no damage whatsoever. And finishing them off, and yeah, there's the hit and run effect. Can we spot a Grand Hero Battle unit? There's another. But no, that's just the units we've seen on the banner, so maybe a new FEH, but no other units being shown off here. Well, very interesting banner. All of these units, I think, are... Why are you inheriting Spur Attack 3? Faye? He has better skills. Come on, don't do this to me. And you can spark up to 2 times. Okay. Yeah, I think this is a pretty good banner overall. And that's it. What can I say? Yeah. All of these units seem at least decent fodder, if nothing else, but also some quite strong PRF effects and some PRF effects that kind of carve out their own niche as well. Like previously you've seen strong but kind of generic PRFs. All of these I feel like are units that aren't really easy to match in terms of what they do. Even if they're easy to match in terms of strength, you're still strong in a kind of different way. So I like that sort of direction they've gone through here. What do you guys think? Tell me in the comments, like and subscribe, because I'm a YouTuber and that's how I gain power and influence. And I'll see you all next time. Penrost out.